So I had a big arc in my life where I used to work in marketing. I was a marketing director. I worked in high-tech industry, communications director, and then I ended up having kind of a shift where I went into the casting field, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the whole process. And then I ended up having a break and went up to Alaska to work. I hiked all the way up through the West Coast, Oregon and Portland and Seattle, and then up through Canada. And when I got up there, I started getting some health issues, and I didn't quite know what was going on because I had been pretty healthy before. When I got back from Alaska, my body started to fail. Like I went from hiking everywhere to I couldn't even walk up the stairs, and I started to lose my memory, and I started to not be able to speak, and I couldn't read anymore. And so I had this huge amount of symptoms, and everything hurt. My body hurt, my skin hurt. I couldn't let somebody touch me because my skin hurt so bad. So I was like trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and I went to a dozen different doctors, and they're like, oh, you have fibromyalgia. Oh, we think you have lupus. Oh, we think you have lymphoma. Oh, like there was all these different things that I couldn't quite figure out what was wrong with me. And by that time it was so bad, I was like not functioning at all. Pretty much bedridden, just terrible. I finally found a fibromyalgia doctor that I went to, and I'm like, you have to help me because I'm not functioning. And she was the first one to even think to test for Lyme. Found out I was positive for Lyme, and it explained all the symptoms, but by this time it had been a couple of years, and it had just burrowed into all my joints and my brain and my heart and all of these, long-term issues that I was facing. So then I spent years doing all kinds of therapies, everything you can think of that you can afford at that point. I mean, Lyme is very complicated. You have doctors that don't think we have it here in Utah. We do. We have hundreds of us that end up with long-term issues because nobody thinks to test for it. Anyway, so I went through that whole situation, and I had a friend of my sister's that we connected online, and he had been going through some PTSD and other kinds of issues, and he said, you have to come try this red light therapy. It has changed my life. And by this time it was like, there's every therapy. Everybody believes their therapy is going to fix me, right? So I was like, well, I'm open to it, but I'll go see. I told him I would try it. So I went for the first month. I thought I'm going to give it a real good month. And with Lyme disease, you go into a fight or flight. So you're in constant anxiety. You're in constant, my heart rate was always over 100, even when I was laying down. You're just totally, your nervous system is completely on edge. And after about the fifth session, Dr. Tate was so great to work with me because he was able to say, okay, let's try this program, let's try these different frequencies to figure out which ones affected me the best. After about the fifth session, I was like, I feel like I'm like relaxing for the first time in 5 years. And so I checked my heart rate and my blood pressure. My blood pressure was low for the first time, and my heart rate was 78. So it was like the first time in 7 years that my heart rate was under 100. And I could feel it. Like I could feel my immune system was, I just felt like my whole system was calming down. So that was one thing. I like to measure stuff. I'm analytical. So the fact that I had data to show that I was actually making a difference, not just how I was feeling. And that's kind of how I got involved in it. I'm just at the beginning of the journey, obviously. The first month I lost 7 pounds. I know it was inflammation that was going away because that was the only thing I did differently. And then my car was rear-ended and it kind of all came back. So I'm now starting again to get all of that calmed down. But I totally believe it works. There's a lot of people with Lyme who use frequencies. They go with like these big expensive machines, and most people can't afford it. So this is something that's affordable, and it's something that works. So I totally believe it. And I'm telling everybody who has Lyme, anybody who has fibromyalgia, anybody who has pain, joint pain, anybody who can't sleep well, anybody who has anxiety, like all of those things, I know for me that it calmed everything down. So that's where I started.
Now that you've been through Valhalla and have used smart light therapy, how's your daily life different than before?
Oh, it's totally different. The fact that I'm here, I can speak. I'm not curled up in a ball hurting. I walked in, I used to not even be able to walk through a grocery store. I couldn't walk up 10 stairs. My body doesn't hurt as much, so that's a huge thing, because when you're in pain, you get really grouchy. And so it's like, you don't want to talk to people. I mean, I would go to the store, I would go to church, and I would be like, don't talk to me. I'm just surviving. Like, I'm just hurting. I'm holding on. And now I feel like I can interact with people because it's under control. It's manageable at this stage. And I'm really hoping that it will get to the point where it goes away. Because I'm just on the beginning of the journey. But with the progress that I've made so far, just in such a short time, I mean, I really think that that's where I'm going to end up. I'm going to end up being able to get back to work and, get back my life.
What advice would you give someone that is in a similar situation than yours?
Oh, absolutely try this therapy. I mean, I really went into it skeptical. I mean, my friend was like, please try it. I think he begged me for like 3 months, and I was like, oh, I'll get to it. Oh, I can't afford it. Oh, it's a long way because I had to drive half an hour to get there. And I had every excuse, and I was like, I want to support him because he believed in it so much. It helped him so much. And I could see the changes in him. So I really was skeptical. And anybody who has Lyme disease, we try everything. I mean, you go from all of the antibiotics to all of the regular medical stuff, and then they kind of drop you because they think a couple of weeks of antibiotics will help you and you'll be better. But most of us aren't. So then we start looking at like alternative therapies, and frequency was one that I had heard about. I had a Lyme specialist who said the people who have Lyme who do not get better are the ones who don't reduce their EMF exposure. And I was like, I've been in the high-tech industry, computers, I've been around computers and high-tech stuff all the time, and none of that has ever bothered me. But I started to unplug my router at home, turned off the Wi-Fi, and I actually slept better. So I thought, okay, there's something to this frequency thing. There's something to the amount of Wi-Fi and exposure of radiation that we're being exposed to. And not just that, the frequencies that are being used. So I started studying, and by this time my ability to read was still not there. So I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I started listening to a book about vibrations and how in the ancient eras they used to use the singing that they would sing Om, and they'd have the monks that would sing in these different tones, and each tone did something different, and they could feel it physically. So I'm like, there's got to be something to that because it's been used for thousands of years. Then I started reading about modern technology and how they actually have cancer clinics that use frequencies to break up cancer tumors. So I thought, okay, there's something to frequency. Well, when I heard about the red light therapy, I was like, how can the red light do anything? But then I realized it's actually using different frequencies, and you can program it for different types of things. So if you could do it for skin, you could do it for inflammation. You can do frequencies that help sleep and get your circadian rhythm back in place. I would just say to anybody who has Lyme, anybody who has fibromyalgia, anybody who has any of those issues that you've tried everything, there's no guarantees, obviously, right? But I went into it totally skeptical, and really after 5 sessions, I could feel a huge difference. And after a month, it was even bigger. So I just say, give it a month. Give it a try. Really, give it a try.